Hey folks, I just wanted to give you an update on the adventure and make this my second vlog post. Sorry, I've been neglecting it a tad, but such as it is. I'm here at mile marker 125 on the Pacific Crest Trail. You can see the terrain is quite dry, not exactly desert, but more maybe chaparral or Mediterranean. There's a lot of shrubs, boulders, not quite a ton of trees, but still really lovely. The point of this vlog post is to give an update on what's been going on in terms of my my body. It's been really rough on the body in a lot of ways, but primarily I've had a couple injuries that have been plaguing me, and so I'll be taking about a week off in Los Angeles starting whenever I can get into town via hitchhiking later today to take some time to rest. It's kind of hard to know how much connectedness exists between what's been going on, but I would theorize probably they're related. It started really day one. I had a strained hip flexor. Some of you might have seen that on Facebook. I didn't know it was a strained hip flexor at the time, but I got a free consultation from a PT in Julian, California, and that's what he said, so now I know the official term. Probably was related to the fact that I took 6 flights in 2 or 3 days leading right up to when I started the trail, and was sitting down and not moving for a long chunk of the days leading up to it, and then went right on ahead, started the trail around 1 p.m. and hiked 15 miles, ending about 7:30, so pretty quick pace, mostly uphill with my pack on the very first day. I was eager, which is a good thing, but might have put the body to a little bit too much of a test. And so for the next few days, my hip flexor on my right hip was hurting quite a bit, which caused me to walk asymmetrically. So not exactly a limp, but sort of putting a little bit more emphasis right on the left leg and lifting my body up slightly more with my left side at any given moment to take some of the stress off my right hip. And I took a couple days off in Julian after I'd been told about the hip flexor strain, and actually was told that it's bad to stretch the hip flexor, which I'd been trying to make it feel better by doing some pretty vigorous stretching routines every morning, but found that just resting it, not stretching it, is actually the best way to heal that. So that started to feel quite a bit better, but then after heading out from Julian and heading into Warner Springs, California, which is about a 32-mile stretch, I developed some pain in my Achilles tendon in my left heel, probably caused by the strain of making my left side lift more of my body for the last 3 days, but it was getting increasingly worse for the 2 days leading into Warner Springs. Did a 19-mile day the first day and then a 14-mile day the next, and on the 14-mile day coming into Warner Springs, it hurt quite a bit. I was on a good regimen of ibuprofen and Aleve, taking it every 4 hours. But when I got there, I knew I needed a more significant rest. So I took about a 30-hour break there overnight, really relaxed, and did a lot of stretching, talked to some previous thru hikers who were also taking a zero there. A zero is a day when you don't hike. And asked if they'd had similar injuries in the past and how they'd overcome them. And kind of the consensus was that it's just stretch it, do the classic RICE, so rest, ice, compress, and elevate. It's often related to tight calf muscles, so massage your calf and you should be feeling better. And so I took their wisdom to heart and spent that time really relaxing and massaging my calf and stretching it out nonstop, taking anti-inflammatories. Thought I was feeling better yesterday, so I took off from Warner Springs, which is about mile marker 109, with 2 other buddies, and we hiked close to 10 miles into the night. But unfortunately, my tendon felt progressively worse over the course of the 10 miles, and by the time we got to mile 9 or 10, I really couldn't walk anymore, and it was extremely painful and acute pain going all the way up my calf from the tendon. And so they were good travel mates, and we're down to stop. We were a couple miles short. We were hoping to get 2, but we stopped and made camp that night. I was hoping it would feel better in the morning, but woke up this morning and it was still really sensitive and inflamed, and hurt quite a bit when I got out of my bag and walked around a little bit. So I told them to continue on, and I took about 20 minutes to stretch and rest it and eat my breakfast, and then pushed on. And unfortunately, where I was kind of equidistant between the 2 road accesses close to where we were. So there's one that would be 10 miles back where we came from, and then another one about 9 miles up at a trail angel's house called Mike's Place, about mile marker 130. And so I just elected to continue forward on the trail. It was the shortest way, and I'd at least get some positive miles, wouldn't have to backtrack. But I've been going quite slow. It's been about 3.5 hours since I started hiking, and I've only made 5 miles or so, which my normal pace would be a little under 3 miles an hour. and so going much slower than normal. Not some parts I've had to limp, some parts I've been able to rely on the trekking poles to take the pain off. It's not too bad on level ground, but on any steep uphill or steep downhill, it hurts quite a bit. And I'm also on a leave and ibuprofen at the moment. So point being is that when I get to Mike's place, I'm going to be hitchhiking into Los Angeles and staying with my cousin. I'm going to take a more significant break to let my body heal. I'll be seeing a physical therapist and see if I can't get my body back into shape. So I will be in LA for 5, 6, 7 days with not much to do. So if you live there, hit me up. I'd certainly be down to hang out. And the ultimate goal is to get my body back in a position where I can hop on the trail once it feels better. And it is kind of a bummer in that, I've made a social network among the people who started within a day of me. So people who started on the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th have become who I've hiked with, who I've camped with, who I've seen in towns with when we're taking a break. And so it'll be a little bit of a bummer to have to restart a totally new social network. And also with law school starting in probably late August, taking a week off has a lot of unfortunate implications for my chances of finishing, but it's better to take this time and help my body feel whole again so it can tackle the rigors of the trail. It obviously just is really destructive on the body, and so if you're in a compromised position, it's not great news. So better to do that than to take a day of rest, which is good but incomplete, and then re-aggravate the injury and have it kind of keep getting progressively worse as you keep hiking and have maybe something chronic develop out of it. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's negative news, but the positive news is that the trail thus far has been quite wonderful in really all ways except for injuries. Made a really good group of friends, which it's kind of bittersweet now, as I was just mentioning, but people who have kind of similar lifestyle goals and similar values and who enjoy the same things you do. It's really cool to be surrounded by people that are all like that. It's also been awesome just to see the different environments that Southern California has to offer. I'm only 125 miles in right now, but I've gotten to experience sort of like subalpine forests up near Mount Laguna, some really true deserts near Campo on the southern border, and then also leaving Lake Morena. Now I'm currently in kind of a chaparral environment. And then even at night, it's totally different. And so not even up in the high country yet of the Pacific Crest Trail, but the scenery's already been spectacular. And one of my favorite parts has been the night hiking. So not something I was necessarily planning on doing a bunch of, but I've ended up doing it every single night so far, between 1 or 6.5 miles after it gets dark. It's a time when you get to see the stars all the time, and the miles seem to fly by. It's actually much easier on your joints because the heat of the day can inflame them even more so than just the strenuous activity. And it's also cool, which is really key because it's hot between 1 and 4 p.m. So if you can avoid that, you're doing pretty well for yourself. So I've enjoyed night hiking quite a bit, and really all aspects of the trail. I love the simplicity of just living out of my pack and kind of the anticipation of coming back into civilization and having a hot meal and subsisting in the meanwhile. So looking forward to having my body be back in a position where I can hop back on. So thanks for listening, and I will keep you all updated. So thanks. Bye.